And you're here for something. Sounds like you're here to learn. You're here to play. You're here to transform. You're going to go to a bunch of sessions today. You're going to listen. Maybe you're going to take some notes. Perhaps even somewhere inside of today there will be an inspiration delivered. And it will change you. You go back to your normal working life on Monday morning. And you begin working on a transformation. Maybe small at first, but a little bit more, a little bit more. Perhaps you're in the middle of that right now, but it isn't what you hoped it to be. But one day you look back. Maybe you look back at today. You look back at today and say, this is the day it started. Because you look at whatever you created, whatever you moved to, from where you are today to where you want to be, and something's different in a compelling way. You achieved your goal. Imagine you could describe what you achieved in just one word. What word would that be? Not a rhetorical question. You did it. You got to where you wanted to be, and you could describe it. Just one word. What would it be?
Joy.
Success. Passion. Satisfaction. Fulfilling.
Better.
Better.
No limits.
No limits.
Playful. Playful.
I missed it.
Playful.
Playful. I like it. How about joyful? Joy is not a word we hear inside of a business context very often, is it? I laid hands on a computer in 1971 for the very first time. It was built by a little company up the road here in Cupertino called Hewlett-Packard. It's a 2,000-seat time-sharing mini computer. I hooked to it over a dial-up modem, 110 baud, using a teletype. I typed in a 2-line program when I was 13 years old. I typed the word run, and the computer came back on a roll of paper and said, "Hi, Rich," because that's what I told it to do. And quite frankly, at that moment, I was hooked. I knew what I was going to do at 13 years old. I knew what I was going to do for the rest of my natural days. My kids are astounded by that. They're like, "Really, Dad, you knew at 13 years old what you're going to do the rest of your life?" And I said, "Yes, I did. I don't know why. But I could see the future of this thing we would call the software industry." And it was delightful. The next few years, I got a bunch of interesting experiences as a programmer. I started working as a programmer before I could drive. People were actually paying me to do this thing I love to do. I went to the University of Michigan. I got a couple of degrees. And I started a career. And very quickly it evolved into probably what you've all seen somewhere in your career. Now this is really, really ironic. Because I'm here in California with you, away from my family, and Monday is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm guessing this is probably what home looks like for me right now. We are the industry that coined the term death march inside of a business context, right? Think about it. We were revered once in our careers for 60, 70, 80 hours a week, spending time away from family, jettisoning personal relationships, jettisoning anything else in our lives from this pursuit of technology, the pursuit of creating something grand. And unfortunately, most of those projects got buried out in the backyard. We all know what that feels like, right? It's almost legendary in our industry to work on something for months or years and then one day have the boss come in and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we canceled the project." And we realized then, as we do now, we didn't get into this industry just to code. We didn't get into this industry just to hit keycaps on a keyboard. We didn't get in this industry just to have people say, "Wow, I don't know what you do, but whatever it is, it's magical." We got in this industry because we wanted to deliver something to the world that delighted people who didn't know what we knew. But unfortunately, our industry, at least it did for me, betrayed me. And there were times where I wanted to get out. There were times I wanted to go away. times I was contemplating canoe camps in the boundary waters of Minnesota. My wife and 3 daughters marvel. They thought, really, Dad, you think we would have gone? Well, so I was stuck. House payment, car payments, all that sort of thing. Stuck inside a career that was destroying me. And unfortunately, we often do it to ourselves. Because one of the other things our industry devolved into is an industry of firefighting. Right? How many of us have shown up in rubber coats and plastic helmets and visors and oxygen tanks in our bag every day to work, while at the same time carrying sloshing gas cans and flicking lit cigarette butts everywhere and wonder why we have a culture of firefighting? We do it to ourselves. It doesn't have to be that way, does it? This is memo version 2. Remember Mika? Yeah, Mika over there used to work at memo. She worked in this room. People come now to see it. Hundreds of tour groups per year, thousands of people. They come from around the world now to see this room. And the follow-on that I'll show you in a second here. And when they come, here's what I say to them. Welcome to Menlo. You've come to a place that is very intentionally created a culture focused on what we like to call the business value of joy. It stops them dead in their tracks every time. And they look at me and they say, Rich, we're here to hear about software process and methodology and Agile and all those kind of things. Why are you talking about joy? And I point back to this room full of people and I say, well, pretend half of these people have joy and the other half don't. And you have a project you want us to work on. Which half would you want working on your project? And they tell me that every time. They say, well, we want the joyful half, of course. And then I ask them why. And I ask you the same thing. Why would they want the joyful half of my team?
More productivity.
More productivity, so they get more done in the same amount of time.
More innovation.
More innovation, they'd be more creative, they'd be using more of their brains to do the work.
Adventurous.
Okay, they've come in with a little more spring in their step, a little more excitement in their lives.
Quality. Quality.
Better quality, they get better work done. They care more, they pay more attention to the details.
Happy customer.
Yeah, you know the most common thing I hear from people outside our industry when they ask this question? Rich, you'd be easier to work with. See, our industry has a little bit of a user experience problem, doesn't it? We are often seen as, if we're a department within a company, we're seen as the department of no and slow. Right? We don't speak the same language as they do. We get curmudgeonly at times. Well, we're working 70 hours a week, wouldn't you? So I tell them, and I'll draw you through it as well. When they come for the tour, I pull them through and I say, understand, we're going to walk through, you're going to see this place. And everything in this room, everything we do is myopically focused on that, the business value of joy. And then I define it for them, because we have a definition for joy, and it's not about what's inside the room, it's about what happens in the room and the effect it has on the world. You see, what we desire, I think, as engineers, as technology creators, is one simple formula. We want the work we do to get out into the world. We want it to be widely adopted. We want it to be enjoyably used. We want it to delight the people that it was built. We want people to stop us on the sidewalk and say, really? You did that? I love that. You make my life better. That's why we do what we do. This is not a technical activity. This is not a theoretical activity. This is practical work, changing the lives of people in positive ways. That's what we're striving for as an industry. That's why we got into this industry in the first place. Here's version 3 of Memo. This is 3 times the size of the old one. We just haven't figured out a big picture to make it look 3 times bigger, but it is. The footprint is 3 times larger. You can ask me about that later. We often talk about tools in Agile, don't we? I'm going to draw you through some of ours. As Ken Beck once said, they're the simplest thing that can possibly work. So we start with story cards. Everything in our place happens first by writing it down on a 5.5 5.5 inch by 8.5 inch index card by hand. It's pencil here. When we're doing FDA validated medical devices, we have to switch to pen. That was a requirement by the FDA. That's what they told us. But this is important. In my old life, when I advanced in that career where the career looked beautiful on the outside, I went from programmer in 1982 to vice president in 1997. And I can tell you, my wife, I'm sure, and my kids were delighted with the career progress I was experiencing. We had wonderful vacations. There was no great financial needs. We had everything materially in our lives that we wanted to have. There was only one small problem for me. I was dying inside. And I wanted out. I was not able to live out my personal values at work. And I wanted to be different. And one of the problems I had was as a VP, I would go make presentations to my executive peers and my boss, and maybe even sometimes it's a public company, the board of directors. And everybody would say, great presentation, Rich, but they'd catch me out in the hallway and they'd say, but just one more thing. Just one more thing. I think Scott Adams of Dilbert fame has essentially encapsulated the world of just one more thing so well in his Dilbert comic strips, right? Just one more thing, right? And of course, I wanted to be the good Boy Scout. I think that, we technologists are wired to be very helpful. And so, sure, yeah, just one more thing, that's fine. Well, of course, what management hears then is, oh, change orders are free. Right? So in our world, we won't do anything unless it's first written down on a simple index card. That is the ambiguity destroyer. Once written down, then we have something to work with. But until it's written down, it's just a conversation in the air. It's amazing how freeing this can be. Because we can have all kinds of conversations now without fear of distracting the team. Because if somebody says, well, this is a really good idea, I say, great, let's write it down. Oh, no, you don't need to write it down, just go do it. No, we're just going to write it down. It's not complicated. We don't need to log in. We don't need to remember the password. We don't need security clearance. We just go get an index card off of a table and get a pencil and start writing. One of our other tools is common sense. Amazing thing about common sense. Nobody knows why they call it common sense. We were engaged one time by a diesel motor tool manufacturer, diesel motor diagnostic tool manufacturer, who wanted us to design the user experience for their new handheld touchscreen diesel motor diagnostic tool. We have a set of people on our team, we call them high-tech anthropologists. I'll say that one more time because it takes a while. High-tech anthropologists. They're the people that go out into the world and study users in their native environment. This client engaged us. We knew nothing about their domain. Absolutely nothing. So we had to learn. You're here to learn today. We went out into the world. We found Bubba. He was working on a bus in the Ann Arbor Transit Authority where our office is located. And we said, we want to watch you do your work. And he's like, really? That seems really boring. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but just humor us, let us watch what you do. Well, the first thing he did was he reached down to his bag of tricks and pulled out a pair of rubber gloves to do his work. You may remember the specification for the device? It's a touch screen. Capacitive touch screen. Won't work with a rubber glove. Now remember, we've only been in this domain now for a couple of hours. We go back to the office, our anthropologists share that with our technical team, and the technical team kind of freaks out a little bit. They're like, it won't work if he's wearing the glove. He's going to have to take off the gloves when he works. And our anthropologist said, you don't know this guy. He ain't going to take off his gloves. He confided in us later that he refers to these kind of tools as techno-garbage. He actually finds magical places on the back that he can hit hard enough with ball peen hammers to destroy the inside without cracking the case. And then he hands it to his boss and says, another one of these pieces of techno-garbage doesn't work, boss. We told that to our customer. They took us to a cabinet full of broken devices. And they said, we've been wondering for years how these things are getting broken. Yep, your users are sabotaging your product to get it out of their place because because it doesn't help their lives. Now, our engineers were thinking, cut off the finger of the glove, that sort of thing. Finally, somebody said, I know, how about a pressure-sensitive touchscreen that'll work with the rubber glove? If we hadn't made that discovery, it would have killed the adoption of that product in the marketplace and would have denied us the joy we are seeking when we design products for our customers. Because we want it to be widely adopted and enjoyably used by the people for whom it's intended. We had to discover that thing. When we told this to our client who'd been in this domain for 30 years and said, do you know your users wear rubber gloves when they work? They said, really? And one of their engineers said, man, you guys are so lucky. We said, why is that? Well, you get to meet our end users. He says, I've been here 12 years, I've never met one. If you're ever wondering why you get frustrated with technology, that's it. We don't apply common sense. We don't go study people. We don't go study them in their native environment. We don't understand their goals as human beings because their goals are different than the technologist's goals. And we have to learn about those things. We have to see things that nobody sees anymore. One of the challenges for us, whatever we do, is we are often unconsciously competent at what we do, so we have to go out and discover it. And our anthropologists are often the ones who write those story cards. Not always, but it's their job to write those other story cards and start filling out what kind of things should we be starting to design and build. We do have fun at Menlo. That is one of our tools. The Viking helmet is iconic at Menlo. The Viking helmet is a very practical tool for us, as you will learn. Probably no surprise to a crowd like this. We work in pairs. We have a daily stand-up meeting at 10 o'clock every morning. And when we report out, we have a token. And because we work in pairs, we like a two-handed token. The Viking helmet is very convenient for that. So we got Viking helmets everywhere. And yes, every once in a while, we put on Viking helmets. Not all the time, just so you're clear. We don't sit around the office all day with plastic Viking helmets on. But we could, just in case you want to. But what they're doing here is more important than the plastic Viking helmets. What they're doing here is they're estimating. Every week, 50, 60 story cards they estimate. 52 weeks a year. We've been in business for 12 years. Some of our team members have been with us most of that time. Imagine how good you get at something if you do it 50 to 60 times a week, 50 weeks a year, for 10 years. Estimations of practices almost never practice inside our industry, and often the estimators themselves are the project managers, not the people who actually do the work. And we wonder why programmers don't buy into project managers' estimates. And then it becomes this bizarre little dance between PM and programmer, right? How long do you think it's going to take? 16 hours. I'll give you 8. Of course, programmers like, it's really 4. Conversation is one of our tools. You saw that big open room. We're always in conversation with one another, but perhaps the most important conversations we have are the ones we have with our clients. So there's been a great divide in our industry, hasn't there, between the technical team and the business team. And I think if there's one thing that Agile's been about since its inception is to figure out how do we affect that conversation in a better way? How do we make sure that conversation happens in a way that both sides are coming away better informed about what's going on, what needs to be done? In our world, we use very simple approaches for this. We have a 5-day cycle in our place, our 5-day iterative cycle. And that 5-day cycle always ends with a show and tell. But we switch the show and tell around. We make it the opposite of what you'd expect. We have our client show us the work we did the previous week. They sit at the keyboard. They walk through everything while my team watches everything that they've worked on for the previous week. It pulls the client in because you know how it is. Probably how it is right now. I'm mesmerizing you with PowerPoint slides. You'll be asleep in 30 minutes. We don't want to do that with our clients. We want them to actually touch working software. That's probably one of the greatest benefits of Agile is nobody knows what it means when you say you're 20% done or you're 30% done or you're presenting Gantt charts with lines on them and boxes and wires all going around the screen and all that sort of thing. Nobody knows what any of that means, but boy, do they know working software. They can look at it and go, oh, is that what you thought we meant? That's not what we meant at all. And our answer is, woohoo! We worked less than 5 days ago, we did this 4-hour story card, and less than 5 days later, you're telling us we misinterpreted your request. Make mistakes faster is a fundamental principle of Lean. And it's a fundamental opportunity inside of Agile. Sometimes the client sees what we did and they say, oh, that's exactly what we wanted you to do, but now that we see it, it's not what we need. And our answer is, woohoo! We did exactly what you wanted. Less than 5 days later, you touched it, and now you decide that's not what you need, so we can change. Because what are we really trying to do here in our community? Yeah, we're trying to satisfy users with real products that will be widely adopted and enjoyably used. This isn't about being perfect. This isn't about getting it right the first time. This is about finding your mistakes soon enough so you don't have to live with them for the rest of your natural days. And if we can do that inside of a tight cycle where everybody's participating and collaborating, we have ways to bring the client into the conversation, we can actually get somewhere, because this is a collaborative effort. You can't just grab a 3-ring binder and throw it a few hundred miles away to a technical team and say, here, go build this. You know that doesn't work. We've always known this. It's never worked. We just were able to put up with it in the past, no longer. The barrier to entry in our industry is too high now. Our users are too sophisticated, they're too demanding, and they have too many opportunities to switch away from whatever wonderful thing we're building to something that somebody built that's even more wonderful than what you're doing. They're demanding better results, and we have to produce them. We need a better process to do that. That's why you're all here today. Then what we do afterwards is that we reflect on the plan going forward with our clients. And again, it's a simple verbal conversation at a table. It's very high tech. We use flat table technology. It has to be roughly orthogonal to gravity, and I say roughly because the building this is in is a 90-year-old building that none of the floors were level, so just it counts on friction and that sort of thing, so it's based in physics. And what we do with those story cards is after they're estimated, we fold them to the size of the estimate. 8-hour card this big. I love this one. People have just witnessed the destruction of scope creep when they see this. 4-hour cards, half as big as 8. 16-hour cards unfolded. And then the client, who has established a time frame and a budget with us, essentially because what we do for a living at Menlo is we design and develop software for others, so we're a contract firm. All of our clients are external to our company. They establish a budget. And essentially what they're doing is buying pieces of paper. This is the real estate for their team. Each one of these sheets represents the 3 fundamental characteristics of professional project management: time, 1 week; resource, in our world, 2 people, because we work in pairs; and budget, an 80-hour box. And if you start laying down these cards on these sheets of paper, you'll see a 16-hour card takes up exactly half of the empty box. You can put 32 hours in the box. Why 32? Well, because there's other important things we have to do to manage our process and get effective work done. We have to estimate. That takes a couple of hours a week. We have to do show and tell. That takes a couple of hours a week. We do a kickoff meeting, which is our version of a introspective, retrospective. That takes a couple of hours a week. 2, 4, 6. Project communication, another hour a week. Daily stand-up, 13 minutes a day, 5 days, 65 minutes, another hour a week. Those are all built into our planning sheets. People who are visitors who see this are stunned by the simplicity and the power of what they've seen. Because now you start laying out these sheets, and the client comes in and starts laying out story cards on these pieces of paper. And when they get done, they fill the sheets, and their project is just like yours. Not everything fits. Right? It never does. There's no project in life. There's no project in the history of mankind that ever all fit. I'm not a historian on the pyramids, but I believe they wanted to build 5 and they only got 3 done. They had 3 days. Fortunately, they didn't get 80% of 5 pyramids done. They actually got 100% of 3 pyramids done. But in our world, when they lay these pieces of paper down on the sheet, they authorize scope. It's a very simple scope authorization exercise. But perhaps more importantly, they've told us what they're not going to do, because there's things that are still on the table. You can see them here. There's things that are still on the table, and if they're on the table, they're not in scope, and they will not be worked on. It's that simple, it's that clear, it's that unambiguous. And it is painful. Because everybody always wants to get everything done, don't they? Oh, come on, just one more thing. My co-founder, James Goble, is sitting in the front row here. He's not paying attention to where he says here this story.
Right on the pyramid.
There we go. That was the first time I've ever come up with that. This seems like the kind of crowd that would appreciate those kind of jokes. But we used to do this differently in the first experiments, and we found out the product managers we worked with couldn't add up and afford and do scope authorization. So you'd always be trying to pack 48 hours into a week or 60 hours into a week, and finally I said to him, Bob, do you want me to just go tell the team we're working 60-hour work weeks? No, I just want to get more done. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. So we constrained it on this little piece of paper, and he didn't like it, but he got it, and he understood it, and he played. Because it's all about making choices, isn't it? It's the way it is in every aspect of our lives. We've got to make choices. We've got to make choices with our time, we've got to make choices with our money, we've got to make choices with our people, and this is where they do that. And this happens once a week. They'll plan well out into the future using these simple paper-based tools. And I can tell you what's amazing is people come in, they see it on these tours. We're already about 280 tours this year alone. People come in, and there is a handful, as you might imagine. Maybe some of you in the audience are like, you're a software company. Yet you use paper-based planning tools. What's up with that? And like, well, we choose tools that work better for the humans. That's the theme here. See, this is multi-user. You can get a lot of people on the table. I think I've just completed training in our planning process. Anybody confused about how you do planning? Anybody want to re-look at add, edit, delete? And by the way, we do have storage capability and professional project management. After a scope is authorized, we want to do change management, right? That makes sense. Firm makes sense. Scotch Magic, transparent tape technology. For you, right? Tape them down, and then it defies gravity at that point. And yes, in fact, we do use electronics at that point. We take it to the copier, lay it down, turn it into a PDF, email it off to our clients, store it on an offsite server. Every one of our paper-based artifacts is stored away in what we like to call a data mausoleum. There's a lot of measures these days of employee engagement, right? You read books on it, that sort of thing, and there's some lists that say, have a great boss to work for. That's how you get employees engaged. You know, have a great campus, free food for everybody. Doctors on site, cots in the conference room. No, that's not it. Short commute to work. I think there's one thing that gets people jazzed at work more than anything else. It's the joy of actually getting something. Most of us go to work and we have a rough idea where we're going, where the company's going. We have a general idea what our department's function is. We have a kind of a notion of what our role is in this, and then it's off to the races on a Monday morning. We actually have no idea what we're supposed to be doing, and then the boss comes in and says, how's it going, what you working on, can you stop working on this, can you start working on that, you have phone rings, there's a customer emergency, all that kind of stuff, and then finally you get home at the end of a very long day, because you've been pulled around 14 different ways, and a loved one at home is waiting for you, and dinner's cold on the table, and you're like, boy, I worked hard today, and your significant other says, really? Did you get a lot done today? And all of a sudden you're like, no, I actually got nothing done. Got a lot of stuff started though. 79 emails behind, but in our world, we create this work authorization board right here. It's our project manager creating that board. Every swim lane represents a pair of people who are assigned to work together for the week. They work from top to bottom. They start in the very first card in the lane. The cards are placed in their column for who's working on it, and they're placed in the row for which day we expect them to be completed based on estimates that came from those people themselves. When they start working on a card, they put a yellow dot on it. So the very first thing they do, in this case, on a Monday morning, they come in, they put a yellow dot on the first card in their lane, and they work on it until they're done or they get stuck. If they think they're done, because programmers have as many different definitions for done as Eskimos have words for snow. Right? You've heard them all. I mean, I used to utter them. That's from my first 20 years of my career were things like, well, it's done, but it's not finished. Well, it's done, but it's not done. Well, I worked on my machine. Really, are we shipping your machine with the product? No, it's mine. Why can't QA get it to work? I don't know, that's their problem, not mine. In our world, our programmers can only self-declare they think they're done. That's what the orange dot signifies. You can see one right about there. Orange dot says they think they're done. Then QA comes and checks their work, and if QA likes what they see, right on the heels of the programmers, QA's sitting right in the same room, enjoying the same pay scale as the rest of our team. We review our QA people. QA likes what they see, get a green dot. That's an endorphin rush for the programmers. If QA doesn't like what they see, you get a red dot. That's an endorphin rush for the QA team. They love breaking things. Well, why do they love breaking things? Because they want to break it in the room. They don't want it to break out in the world. They take a deep amount of pride in things getting out there that actually are solid and work. Because there's nothing more frustrating than delivering technology that doesn't work. Because then your phone starts ringing off the hook, and now we're wearing rubber coats and carrying sloshing gas cans and flicking cigarette butts everywhere. In our world, orange dot also means all the unit tests are checked in. All the unit tests have been run. And they all passed 100%. All the code is checked in another computer, it's been built on another computer. And then as soon as they put the orange dot, they just go down the lane. They work down the lane. The yarn indicates where we are in the week. We were able to actually eliminate a person on our team with a piece of yarn. You put that yarn there, and everything above it should be completed based on the way the boards work. Everything probably not below it. And what the yarn did was allow us to eliminate the person that goes around saying, hey, how's it going? What you working on? Remember that? It used to be this whole theory about management by walking around and annoying people. I hated that guy, and then I became that guy, and I hated being that guy. We killed that guy. Never hired him. So all these swim lanes, the yarn goes down day by day by day. Get to the 5th day, you have your show and tell, you're playing the game, rebuild the board. 5-day cycle goes through. Humans don't really thrive well in chaos. Humans respond to chaos often with crushing bureaucracy, and that's no more delightful. Over in chaos, you never get anything done. Over in bureaucracy land, you never get anything started. What you want in the middle is structure. Humans crave predictable structure. And if you can give them predictable structure, freedom begins to spring forth. Our team is free to do the work that they love, almost unfettered by anyone hanging over their shoulder saying, hey, how's it going? What you working on? You're almost done. You're working on the right thing. You're working on the wrong thing. They're like, just go to a different board. If Finally, we give our team permission to learn. That's one of our big tools. And we work in pairs all day long. 2 people, 1 computer, same task, all day long. In our world, those pairs are assigned, and we sit them every 5 working days. And it fosters a learning organization. Not just our programmers pair, our QA pairs, our high-tech anthropologist pair, our project managers pair. If you're doing project work at Menlo, you're working in a pair. You see, I had a problem in my old life as a manager. It was a tower of knowledge problem. I remember when I first took over as VP for a public company, and the first board meeting I went to with the board of directors of this soon-to-be valued $400 million public company, and Tom, one of the board members, came up to me, grabs me by the shoulders and says, "Welcome aboard, Rich. How's Aaron doing?" Aaron was the name of my key tower of knowledge programmer. Tom was delivering a very important message in that little exchange. He was like, "Rich, your job is to take care of Aaron. Your job depends on it." Quite frankly, the value of the company depended on Aaron. If Aaron failed what I like to optimistically call the lottery ticket test, it's a better version of the beer truck test, right? And you know, he won $10 million in the lottery. You know, anybody have a tower of knowledge on their team? Okay. First names only. Just tell me what their tower's name is. First name. Maybe you are the tower. That's okay. You can fess up. Rob. Dan. Yeah. You know, it's amazing. Everybody knows the names of their towers. You all know. You got them. You can't survive without them. We once talked to a multi-billion-dollar insurance company who said they have 5 of them, and if those 5 people left, they probably have to shut down the company. They were serious. It's crazy, right? And here's the problem. While the tower might feel like job security, it's a prison from which they cannot escape. They want to go work on new stuff, and they look down, there's a rusted bear trap around their leg. They want to go on vacation, and they're packing up their laptop before they go. They want to go home tonight and be with their family, and they can't because they have too much to do. We want to try and give them somebody else, but they're too busy to bring them along and train them in what they're doing. And of course, then there's the times where the tower isn't needed, but they don't have any other skills, so you can't easily move them from one place to the other. We have no towers at Menlo. It's not possible. 2 people, 1 computer, every 5 days, breaking them apart, moving them around. None of our programmers refer to themselves by technology. None of them say, "I'm a C# developer, I'm a Java developer, I'm a database developer, I'm a front end, I'm a back end, I'm algorithms, I'm an iOS developer, I'm a mobile developer." Our programmers, they say they're programmers. They know any given week they could be on any client's project, they could be in any stack of technology, they could be in any language. It might be even a language that just came out last week. But what they have is an environment in which they can learn new things. We give them permission to learn. Very, very powerful. And yes, we do run experiments, lots of them. That's one of our biggest tools at Menlo. One of the most common phrases at Menlo when we're struggling with something is, "I know, let's run an experiment. Let's run the experiment." Well, one time, Tracy, right here, came in about 6 years ago. She had just had little Maggie, and Tracy didn't have any family network close by, and Maggie was too young for daycare, and she was ready to come back to work, and she told me she said, but she didn't know what to do with Maggie. And in a moment of maybe managerial brilliance or insanity, I had this like screaming match in my head that Tracy never heard. You know, the screaming match went something like this: "Don't do it, I know what you're gonna say. It's against the rules, HR will hate you. It's against the law, you know the liability you're about to incur." And the other side said, "What's my company? We don't even have an HR department." I said, "The heck with you," and I looked at Tracy and I said, "Bring her in." Now, if you could have seen the look of bewilderment on her face at that moment. She's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Bring her to work." She said, "All day?" I said, "Sure." And then she started to wonder if I really thought this through. The answer was no. She said, "Every day?" I said, "Why not?" And she says, "Well, what if she makes a fuss?" I said, "Tracy, you're the mom. I trust you. You'll do the said, in this environment, it's like a noisy restaurant. Kids love that stuff. Well, in fact, Maggie came in every day for about 4 months. It was delightful. There were unexpected effects of this. Number one, I always thought it would be Tracy that would rush to rescue Maggie. Almost never. Oh no, it's my turn to hold the baby. They got pictures of me sitting at my computer. Then there was these other unexpected benefits. Do you know that customers will not swear at you in a meeting if you make a mistake? That was 8 minimal babies ago in 6 years. It is a delight. I can't emphasize this enough. Space and the energy that comes from it is huge. There is no corner offices to the 2 co-founders. We sit out right in the middle of the room with everybody else. You'll meet James later just because he's sitting up here. This is James and I here. It's a common scene. Him telling me what to do. And me humbly trying to listen. Okay, James, I understand. But 2 people, 1 computer all day long, talking through what they're working on, sitting in close collaboration with each other. And the space itself is made to be flexible. Pull-downs from the ceiling, lightweight tables to move around. This is important. The team is in charge of the space. There are no facilities people. There's no permission asked. If the team wants to change the space, the team just changes the space. It's messy, but it's theirs. It's what they want it to be. Sometimes they just change it for fun. 12-pack of beer on Friday night, and they'll move all the tables to another space just because they want it to be different. Most of the time, the changes are very practical changes related to the projects they're working on. But I can't emphasize that enough, that we are so defined by our working facilities, by our spaces, right? There's that old adage that says first we define our buildings, then they define us. Well, we want to be flexible, we want to be humble. James and I have the same 5-foot tables that everybody else does in the space. And quite frankly, we actually don't decide where we sit. The team decides where they need us, and so they put us somewhere. So we could likely come back from this 5-day trip and our tables moved. We just go find where they put us and we sit down. We don't care where we sit. It's important for the team, for us to sit in a particular place. And when we communicate with one another, we don't use electronics. We use what we like to call high-speed voice technology. It's awesome. Vocal cords, body language, eyebrows. When we want to call an all-company meeting, you're going to practice this with me. I'll teach you this. This is your takeaway. I'm going to say, hey, Menlo, and you're going to say, hey, Rich. Hey, Menlo! Hey, Rich! Boom, the whole place goes quiet. If you ever come to Menlo and you want to try this, you just walk in and you walk in the door, it could be the first thing you just say, you got to say it with some authority, okay? You just come in, hey, Menlo. And you just keep working. You come in and say, hey, Menlo! And they'll be like, hey, you! And you better have something important to say because they're all going to be sitting there dead quiet and waiting on it. And if you're like, I just wanted to run the experiment, see if it actually worked the way Rich said it did. So all company meetings typically take somewhere between 7 and 13 seconds. Right? Hey, Menlo, who wants to go to lunch today? And they're like, yay! Or who wants to do lunch and learn? Boom! Then we go back to work. Nobody moved. In lean manufacturing terminology, we've eliminated the waste of excessive motion. No CC all emails, no booking calendars and conference rooms. Hey, Menlo, we're in a meeting, and I'll just sit there. Of course, it's one of the advantages of being one big open room. And then, boom, the meeting's done. But ultimately, I think what it is more than anything is the human energy in the room. You walk in and you feel it. I get a chance to lead most of the tours we do at Menlo. My card actually says tour guide on it. I've got cards up here if you want one, and you'll see it. It says tour guide up here. when I hear people, first thing they open the door and they walk in and they say it, they're like, wow. Every single time they can feel it. You want that for your people. You want that for your team. But beyond all that, there is in fact rigor and discipline. That's an important part of our practice. This is huge. It's amazing to me. I learned how to do test-driven software development in 1980. They didn't have any fancy names for it. I just was taught by some really sage programmer back then. Write the tests, then write the code, and then run the tests. I learned that from him, and then I got my first assignment inside of that company, and the boss pulled me aside and he says, all that stuff you learned about from John, forget about it, we got work to do. I didn't get to use those techniques, watch it be used in a team until 1999 when Kent Beck and Martin Fowler started describing JUnit and TDD and all that in his book Refactoring. Our programmers are highly disciplined. They will not write the code before they write the test. They will not write a single line of code unless two of them are paired together. It's one of the strongest rules we have is you can't write a single line of code alone. You can't declare you're done, you think you're done with an orange dot, unless you've checked in all your tests, you've checked in all your code, and you've run all of the tests, and they all pass 100%. Then and only then can a programmer on our team, programming pair, self-declare they think they're done. We have one project we've been working on for 402 iterations over 17 different projects. That's 8 years. We have almost 30,000 unit tests on that code. What is the effect of all this? People often ask me, like, Rich, how do you know this works? Usually about 2 hours into a tour, I say, okay, I pull out my phone and I call our switchboard. It sits right out in the middle of the room. You can hear it everywhere. And I say, that's the first time you heard that sound, isn't it? They're like, yeah. And then it dawns on them. I said, that's the only phone we have. If we had a hotline, that would be it. But we don't. We don't need it. We don't have 30% of my team dedicated to emergencies. The last time my team remembers a software emergency was 2004. And they look at me and they're like, Rich, we get 300 calls a day because of problems in our software. I said, we don't. Rigor, discipline, building towers of knowledge, and quite frankly, what we have is also a humanly sustainable pace. I believe what I'm about to declare, you guys can challenge me back, okay? Because this is a pretty, I'm feeling a little, this is the center of the software universe here out in Silicon Valley. So I'm going to make a declaration of a lot of smart people. But I think we've done something at Menlo that no other software company in the history of our industry can match. 12 years in, 40-hour work weeks, never weekends, never had a deniability of vacation request. 12 years more profitable. Why can we do that? Because we break Brooks' Law regularly. If we need more done, we can add more people. How does that work? Well, we're practicing onboarding and offboarding every 5 days because we switch to pairs. If I have 4 people working on a project and we need to get twice as much done, we break those 4 people apart, add in 2 computers, put 4 more people in, put twice as many story cards in the wall, and suddenly we're getting nearly twice as much done the next week. And that's how we can maintain a humanly sustainable pace and avoid emergencies. And ultimately, my goal was to build this thing called a learning organization. As Peter Senge said in his book that greatly affected me, the 5th discipline, in the long run, the only sustainable source of competitive advantage is your organization's ability to learn faster than your competition. And the way you're going to do that is with a team. And Petra Lencioni in this book said it's not finance, it's not strategy, it's technology, it's teamwork alone that's the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it's so powerful and it's so rare. We have a team. We don't have an org chart. We don't have a boss structure. We don't have a hierarchy. We have a team. Our inspiration does not come from Menlo Park, California. It comes from Menlo Park, New Jersey. I don't mind the double entendre with the heart of Silicon Valley, but I got to tell you, this was my inspiration. Was one big open room where a guy in a simple room with a great team changed the world. I know Tesla might disagree with me. It's a different issue for a different day. So my question to you as you go through the rest of your day today is what are you going to take away from today? Not just my talk, from the ones you're going to go in. Dive in. Look for those pieces and parts that you can take back. Start running simple experiments back at your place. Bring your enthusiasm back into your own place. Think about that as you're sitting in your sessions today taking notes, because you've got a lot of great instructors here. I know some of them. I can tell you their heart is in the same place mine is. We want to create a great work product. We want to look back over the course of our lives and say, I left the world a better place than I found it. One way to do that is to create great work. Another way to do that is to inspire the people who work around you. I'll open it up for questions now. I have described all of this recently in a book that's coming out from Penguin. It is available for free. Thank you. Yes, sir.
How do you recommend that people suddenly switch from? How do you recommend that people? How do you recommend that people suddenly switch from, sort of normal operations to this amazing thing?
Yep. My own personal history is that I ran small experiments first, because when I was a VP, I had a normal team. I had a traditional team with offices and cubes and towers of knowledge and all that sort of thing. I suggested that first time I suggested my team to move to an environment like this, you might imagine their reaction, maybe you won't. The first time I suggested to my team that this is where I was thinking of taking them, they said, Rich, blood, mayhem, murder, don't do it. Now, I had two other guys on my team who said, we'd like to try this. This sounds intriguing enough, we'd like to try it. I said, okay, let's authorize an experiment. So we took two guys for 3 weeks and ran an experiment. One of those two guys, who was equally despondent as I was in his career, but he was the programmer and I was the vice president, and we were talking about his despondency in regular sessions, and he was planning on quitting, but he signed up for this little experiment. They commandeered a little open conference room. They sat together, they worked off of story cards, they paired, they wrote unit tests, and 3 weeks in, he stopped me in the parking lot. He says, Rich, are you still going to pay me to work here? And I said, what do you mean? He says, this is so much fun, it doesn't feel like work anymore. I'm not sure I should get paid for it. And I will tell you, and I know any of you who have coached anywhere in your in your resume or in your business card, if you are a coach of some sort who's trying to help with transformation, you know transforming human teams is the hardest thing to do on planet Earth. We want to I don't care how much pain we're in, we want to maintain the pain that we're comfortable with. And so you will not win with lukewarm reactions from the middle. You have to deal with the emotions from the edges. Blood, mayhem, murder, I will work for you for free. I was dealing with edge emotion. And so we ran simple experiments. I'm happy to go deeper into some of the follow-on experiments we ran, but I would say that there's two things your team's going to watch for. One is you flip too big a switch too soon, you're probably going to get fired. That's what they're waiting for anyways. And the second one is if you go too slow and you're too wishy-washy, they know they can outlast you. And so you've got to strike a balance between those. Yes,
this is wonderful, first of all, thank you.
thank you.
It's inspirational and transformational. If you had to transform eBay, would you have any strategies? Do we have, I think it probably, do you have any strategies about doing lots of Menlos across eBay, or how do you accommodate the corporate hierarchy, as you expand?
Sure, you mean eBay isn't already like this? I don't know.
Let's do eBay.
Okay, that's fine. It wasn't a poke or anything. I just don't know. I assume all of Silicon Valley's like this, and you guys are like, duh, it's just, okay, you guys in Ann Arbor are finally catching up with things. I think like all change initiatives, it is a project in and of itself, and I would suggest to you that you can't do it all at once. Start building models in little places, because I don't care how big the organization is, it's not one organization, it's a bunch of little fiefdoms that fly a common flag, find some inspirational leaders, build something, and let the rest of the world come. And this isn't, I didn't have what you guys have right now. And what I mean by that is, I didn't have a memo to go visit. You guys can come and visit us, okay? And I'm not saying that's what you should do, but know that it exists and know that we embrace that so you can at least come see it and poke at it and look at it and say, could we do this? Because ultimately, all you're trying to do is get a few people in your organization to flip this little switch that says, let's try this. And then you create your own little microcosm inside of eBay, and then people come start visiting you. When I did this for the first time inside of a public company, the whole organization started coming back and peeking inside. They're like, what are they doing? This is so weird. And then all of a sudden, we noticed them start tearing down their own cube walls. We started watching salespeople start to pair on cold calls, because cold calling sucks for salespeople. And if they had two of them there together, they could support each other through this sucky process.
Thank you.
Question on there.
Thank you for this inspiring talk today. Do you have any special hiring process? Do you
Oh,
look at
goodness. Yes, we do. So yes, is that the extent of your question? I'm happy to describe it now. That's it. Yeah, sure. So yeah, we have an interesting enough hiring process that it actually made the cover story of Inc. magazine in July 2011. Lee Buchanan wrote a wonderful article on it. So if you want to read about our hiring practice, you can read about it in Inc. magazine. But I will describe it for you briefly. I will tell you that your hiring practices define your culture. Seems obvious, right? Now understand, the typical hiring process that I used to run, that I see in a lot of organizations, is two people lying to each other for 2 hours across the table. Think about it, right? You know, Rob, are you a team player?
Oh, yes.
Do you like people, Rob?
No.
Actually, no, Rob is right. He doesn't like people. Rob, if you were a day of the week, what day would you be?
I'm going to throw an exception on that.
No, 5 minutes.
Oh, gosh. Okay, if I were a day,
What day would you be?
I guess I'd be Sunday.
Sunday, really? Why Sunday?
Except the word Sunday.
Sunday's got the word Sunday in it. Okay, he's right. I mean, we do this stuff, right? And we think this hire is going to work. But what you have to do is craft your interview process to fit your culture. You can imagine, you know, let's go back to the room. You know, imagine hiring into imagine hiring into there. And we ask some silly questions like that, and then we throw Rob into the mix, and people are, you know, well, Rob doesn't get this. And Rob's thinking, where's my cue? You didn't really mean I was going to, I mean, I heard you say it was going to be, you know, with another person. So what we do is we simulate the work environment inside the interview. This would be slightly, what do you think, James? I mean, 200 people would be a little difficult, so let's assume we didn't do 200, but I think our largest one was about how big?
100 and... It was 100.
Oh my
That
gosh.
was the
Okay, you're right. So we did 100, and what we do is we bring in 100 people, and typically it's more like 30 to 50. We bring them in mass, and we pair them during the interview. You two work together for 20 minutes. You're both interviewing. We assign one of my team members to watch you work together. We give you a little paper-based activity, nothing too complicated. It isn't like, tell me how many golf balls it takes to fill up this conference room or something like that. You know? Uh-oh, discovered something there, didn't I? My search engine won't work anymore. Or my email. But, so we bring you in, we give you a simple practical activity to work on for 20 minutes, and we give you some very explicit instructions. We tell you your job is to make her look good. If she struggles, support her. What we're looking for is good kindergarten skills. Do you play well with others? We don't care what your resume says. We don't care how many years of experience we have. We don't care where you got your degrees from. We don't care what bosses you've worked for in the past. We don't care anything. If you don't fit our culture, we're not going to hire you. And the way we're going to determine that is to watch to see how you support your pair partner. Don't grab the pencil out of her hand. Ask permission. we got to give this instruction and people ignore it. And we do that for 20 minutes and we switch the pairs. And now it's no longer the two of you, now it's the two of you. Why are we doing this? Because this is the way we work. And we do it one more time with a third observer. We do it 3 times, then we send you all home and we talk about what we saw. Because there'd be 1 observer for every 2 people. So if we had 30 people and we have 15 observers, then we talk through what we saw. People say, how many of you saw come out? Right? And 3 people on the team would raise their hand. How do you do? Well, he's kind of a steamroller. Roll right over his first partner. And so, yeah, well, no, actually it wasn't that, but or somebody will say, well, he's really nervous. And of course our team's like, wouldn't you be? I was nervous when I first went through this. I mean, it's a natural thing, right? But we just simply watch it, and then if that works, if we get 3 thumbs up, we bring you back for a second interview. If we get kind of thumb up, thumb in the middle, thumb down, we talk about you and decide as a team whether we should bring you in. And it is a team-based decision. James and I have almost no say. I mean, they'll listen to our opinion, but I think they just crumple up our load and throw it away because they say, well, you guys don't have to bear with these people, right? And so then we bring you in for a full-day interview. And what you do is you pair with one first programmer, say in the morning, if you're a programmer, pair with another one in the afternoon, do real work, and we pay you for a day. And if that works, then we bring you in on a 3-week contract, and now you pair with 3 different people over 3 weeks. And if that works, then we put you on a 400-week contract. But team will often suffer for that. So that's how we bring people on board. Okay, I'm gonna let somebody else direct. There we go.
Hi. Oops, I'm standing, so I guess I'm going to go. That was really wonderful, Richard. I'm observing, when you're asking about people, first names, Tower of Power, and being in Silicon Valley, you always hear a man's name for the most part. And so my question, especially given that Joy tends to be a woman's name more than a man's name, any insights or observations that you have about women in leadership, especially in tech, and the difference that it's made and sort of where you see things in terms of women leadership being part of, or I shouldn't say leadership, but women team members being part of the change and what still needs to happen from your point of view, aside from being able to bring gorgeous babies into the office. Thanks.
It's interesting. I mean, you actually, it's kind of fun to look at this picture, isn't it? There's Christina and Lisa right here, 2 of our project managers. Carol, our factory floor manager. There's Michelle and Carissa. Wow, that's fun that you would do that, James. That's really neat. James barely remembers my name most of the time. Michelle and Carissa, 2 of our hot anthropologists. There's Healy, one of our programmers, and Najla, and Vera, and Lisa Maria. And so we're about a 50-50 mix as far as men and women at Menlo. And I think that it's really, we strive for cognitive diversity in our team. We think that's really important. And it isn't like there's some, we're not trying to achieve that kind of balance. It just happens. But I think it's an easy place for everybody to be who they are. I can tell you that the other thing we get is pay equality here, because if you're an associate level 3 in the team, you're making exactly the same amount of money as every other associate level 3. There's no differentiation for where you worked in the past or how many years of experience or even how many years you've been at Menlo. So everybody who's at the same level makes the same amount of pay, even regardless of role. So QA gets paid the same as an associate level 3 as project management as does software development. So it's a little bit different in that regard too.
In fact, we have 50-50 here to listen to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, we have 50-50 here too to listen to you.
Awesome. I like it. And Mita is a great example of someone you can talk to who actually was a woman who worked in our place for a good amount of time. And I always enjoy Mita's story of how we kind of helped rescue her career. Because she wanted out just like I did once upon a time.
Hey Rich, what's your thoughts around remote teams, global teams, and scaling this model?
Sure. So we put high value in proximity. And so the high-speed voice technology thing for us works better when we're all in the room together. So one of our fairly stringent rules is if you're going to work on a project at Menlo, you have to be in the room. There are exceptions from time to time for personal situations, but we're not a work-from-home team. We're not a offshore team. And And so, in fact, when we work with people from California, they have to get on airplanes and come to us. So you can ask Rob about that, because Rob Myers is here and he worked for us for a couple of years. It was a fun story at the beginning because he said, "Oh, Menlo, I'll come down and visit you for lunch."
Your office address was not on your website.
It was clever marketing on our part. So I'm not saying it can't work, but I will say if you're going to do that, and it's hard, right? I will suggest to you, in my view of our world, having remote teams and people working apart from one another makes it harder, and there are many people who've solved that problem, so I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but what I will say is make sure you're focusing on building the human relationships inside your team, and I don't know any other way to do that than getting them together. So even if they're far apart, find ways to continually bring them together from at least time to time.
Thank you, Rich. We have time for one more question.
And I'm going to be here all day in case you want to pepper me with questions later. So.
Rich, I just wanted to hear if you could elaborate where you talked about the transition and you said that you kind of look for the extremes. How about the resistant extreme? What are you doing there to sort of engage?
The what stream?
The most resistant. You said that you're looking
sure.
for transformation. You want to sort of focus on those extremes. How about the resistant side?
Yeah. So I never forced this on anybody on my old team. Now Menlo started like this from the beginning. So our interview practice that Tom asked about is one where we can, we can just put it right out there like I did with all of you. And let me just show anybody that ever want to work in a place like this. And drop your resumes off just a little bit here. But there were some people who maybe didn't raise their hand. I'm not going to count you out or anything, but it's like, if you're like, it's just not for me, you self-select and you self-select out. But in my old team, when I changed an existing team, I didn't really want to fire people. It's not the way I'm wired. And so I just built the thing and drew them into it and gave them a chance to experiment with it. And of the original team, there were 2 guys who said, I can't do this. And I understood. And I had other assignments for them that they could do outside of this environment. There were just some things they were giving up by not being part of this team. But most of them came along. I mean, humans are funny, right? You get a few enthusiastic people and you know who they are on your team, and they start drawing the middle energy, and then eventually the resistors are like, well, I guess this really isn't management du jour. I guess this really isn't flavor of the month. Holy cow, everybody's over there playing the new reindeer games, and they seem to be having a lot of fun. I guess I'll go over and join them. And so, and that's what I saw happen. I'm sure it wasn't universally enthusiastic for all of them, but what I can tell you is part of this is the vision of the leader. I can tell you when I got into this, one of my old-time programmers, by the time I became VP, I was still the new kid on the block at this company. I had only been with this company for 16 years at that point. Some of my programmers have been there 25 and 30 years. And one of my old-time programmers, after this thing had clearly succeeded, after the energy was there, he came in, he sat down with me and he said, Rich, how'd you do it? Why were you willing to take this risk? He says, you had everything. You had the title, the position, the authority, the stock options, the pay. You had everything. And yet you were willing, you had no idea this was going to turn out this well. I said, it was actually quite easy for me. And he said, really? He says, where'd you find that? I said, understand, this wasn't about taking risk. This was about running away from risk. You see, what was at risk for me then was me. What was at risk for me then was I didn't know what I was going to do the rest of my career because I didn't want to do this anymore. And so I was running away from risk, not towards it. And I think I was able to deliver a sense to my team that this guy isn't letting up. He's not going to let go of this. It isn't about getting a promotion. It isn't about getting a raise. It isn't about getting kudos from the board. It's more important to him. I see a purpose inside of this leader. And I guess I better follow if I want to stay here. And I think that's important. I think that's some of the things you all have to look at for yourselves. Thank you very much.